There's a version of Lovecraft that stays polite. Crumbling libraries, half-glimpsed shadows, restraint as its own reward. The Sinking City 2 isn't interested in staying polite. Frogwares The Sinking City 2 drops the original's open-world detective structure and commits fully to survival horror. Calvin Rafferty, a man more versed in the supernatural than any hard-nosed investigator, wakes into a nightmare of his own making. A ritual meant to save his partner Faye instead traps her somewhere between worlds, while Arkham itself starts drowning around him. The floodwaters aren't set dressing. They actively reshape the map, closing routes and opening new ones as the game progresses. So the city you're navigating in Hour 6 doesn't fully exist by Hour 10. Ammunition is scarce, monsters are patient, and every decision Calvin makes trades one kind of safety for another. It's a game about being outmatched by the water, the creatures, and the impossible math of who gets saved.
My eyes from the nerve, and as they died in their sockets, I introduced the slither. Now, alien and arcane worlds of old sing to me from the page.
Every entry into Lovecraft's orbit eventually reaches for the same well. Cosmic scale, indifferent gods, minds breaking under the weight of what they've glimpsed. The Sinking City 2 does this constantly, but it earns the dread by keeping the horror partially submerged, literal and otherwise. Calvin doesn't fight monsters so much as catch fragments of something too vast to fight. That restraint, scale implied rather than shown, is a hard needle to thread. One recent novel threads it with unsettling precision, using something as ordinary as a fishing trip to open a door nobody should have found.
Some years ago, never mind how many, I started to fish. I've been fishing for a long time now, and as you might guess, I know a story or two. That's what fishermen are, right?
John Langan's The Fisherman starts small on purpose. Two widowers, bonded by grief, take up fishing together as a way of not talking about their losses. When a local diner owner tells them about a stretch of water called Dutchman's Creek, the novel folds a second story inside itself, a 19th century tale of ambition, sorcery, and a meal cooked from something that should never have been caught. By the time the two threads meet, grief has become the doorway, and the creek has become something closer to an open wound in the world.
What makes it land, and what The Sinking City 2 understands just as well, is the pacing of revelation. Langan doesn't rush toward tentacles and scale. He lets ordinary sorrow curdle slowly into cosmic horror, so that when the novel does finally show its hand, the impossible feels earned rather than announced. Calvin's Arkham works the same way. Dread accumulates in small, human moments before the water ever shows what's actually underneath it. It's also a genuinely underread book for how good it is, passed around more in horror fiction circles than mainstream ones. A kind of quietly devastating cosmic horror that rewards patience instead of punishing it. Strip away the mythos and the flooded skyline, and The Sinking City 2 is, moment to moment, a game about counting. Bullets counted, bandages counted, safe rooms mapped and remembered because you can't afford to waste the trip back. Frogwares leans hard into that anxiety, the specific dread of a locked door you don't yet have the resources to open. It's a feeling the genre has one defining reference point for, a game that turns scarcity itself into the loudest sound in the room.
Jesus! They're everywhere!
Resident Evil 2's remake didn't just modernize a classic, it reproved that survival horror's best tool is subtraction. 6 bullets in a shotgun, a knife with limited durability, an inventory grid that never has quite enough slots, forcing constant, uncomfortable triage between healing items, ammo, and keys. Every encounter with a lurching zombie or a relentless Mr. X becomes a math problem under pressure, and the game is at its best when that math has no clean solution. The Sinking City 2 borrows this philosophy almost note for note. Calvin's inventory is tight enough that picking up a new weapon often means leaving something else behind, and ammunition for anything effective against the game's larger threats, the Shoggoth chief among them, never quite keeps pace with how often you need it. Both games understand that scarcity isn't just a difficulty setting, It's a storytelling device, turning every corridor into a decision instead of a formality. It's also the most obvious pick on this list, by design. Sometimes the reference point everyone already knows is exactly the one worth naming, because nothing else has executed the idea as precisely.
Arkham's flooding isn't a backdrop, it's an antagonist with its own timeline, indifferent to whether Calvin's ready for what it uncovers or cuts off. That kind of environmental hostility, a city actively losing the fight against water, is rarer on screen than it should be, and rarer still when it's handled without spectacle. One underseen series built its entire premise around exactly this: survival not against a flood as event, but flood as ongoing condition, one nobody gets to outrun for long.
Alle blev slået ihjel, da regnen kom. Den der ikke døde med det samme, de nåede og smidte en helvedes masse ind i selvkrasset.
The Rain, a Danish series from 2018, imagines a virus carried in rainfall that wipes out most of Scandinavia, forcing a small group of survivors to navigate a landscape where the water itself has become the threat. What separates it from typical outbreak fiction is its refusal to romanticize the aftermath. Cities aren't dramatic ruins, they're slowly abandoned, waterlogged and stripped of anything that made them livable, with survivors constantly retreating to higher, drier, safer ground that keeps shrinking. That retreat is the through line the Sinking City 2 shares most closely. Arkham doesn't get destroyed in one cinematic set piece, it goes under gradually, block by block, and Calvin's relationship to the map is defined by which routes have already been lost. Both stories are less interested in the flood as a single catastrophic image than in the slow, grinding logistics of a place running out of dry land. It's also a strong off-the-beaten-path pick, a non-English language series that rarely comes up in horror or survival conversations, despite handling its premise with more restraint and patience than most bigger-budget disaster fiction manages. Calvin's central bargain, one life against an entire city, isn't just narrative framing. Frogwares built mechanics around it, forcing choices where saving one person costs something to everyone else in earshot. That kind of triage, stripped of heroism and reduced to logistics, has a defining reference point in games. One that doesn't ask you to fight monsters at all, just to live with what keeping people alive actually requires. This War of Mine flips the wargame formula on its head by putting you in charge not of soldiers, but of civilians hiding in a bombed-out house, scavenging for food, medicine, and materials while trying not to get shot doing it. There's no combat power fantasy here, just constant grinding decisions about who eats, who sleeps, and who goes out at night into a city where every scavenging run risks not coming back. The game's genius is refusing to let any choice feel clean. Steal from an elderly couple to keep your own group fed, and the game doesn't reward or punish you cleanly, it just makes you carry it. That's the exact moral texture the Sinking City 2 is reaching for with Calvin's arc. Not a hero making the right call, but a man making a costly one and living inside the consequence. 11 years old now and still under-discussed outside dedicated strategy and survival circles, this War of Mine remains one of the few games willing to make weighing one life against many a mechanic instead of a monologue, which is precisely why it earns the comparison here. The Sinking City franchise has always split the difference between detective and horror protagonist, and the sequel keeps that tension alive even as it leans further into survival horror. Calvin still investigates, he just does it knowing that some answers actively unmake the person looking for them. That specific collapse, where methodical inquiry becomes the thing that destroys you, has one towering cinematic reference point, a film about an insurance investigator who should have closed his case and gone home.
Go back. Your world lies beyond that passage.
John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness follows John Trent, an insurance investigator sent to track down a missing horror novelist whose books seem to be driving readers insane.
What starts as a straightforward missing persons case, interviews, paper trails, a fairly mundane process of elimination, slowly reveals itself to be something closer to a trap. The town Trent investigates doesn't just contain the horror, it's built from it, and his professional skepticism becomes useless the deeper he goes.
That's the exact tension the Sinking City 2 keeps circling. Calvin's investigative instincts, rating scenes, piecing together fragments, trusting logic to get him through, work right up until they don't. And the game is most unsettling in the moments where deduction runs headfirst into something that simply refuses to make sense. Both stories understand that the scariest version of an investigator isn't one who fails to find the truth. It's one who finds it. A cult favorite that's aged into a genuine influence on cosmic horror cinema without ever quite breaking into the mainstream canon the way Carpenter's other films have, it remains one of the sharpest depictions of investigation as a liability rather than a strength.
Arkham was never going to stay dry, and Calvin was never going to stay untouched by what he found underneath it. 5 different works, 5 different mediums, all circling the same idea, that the water, the scarcity, and the choices don't stop coming just because you're tired of making them.